Hey there, beautiful people. This is Lindy Ford, registered dietitian, clinical and licensed nutritionist, and nutrition detective. So when I was a kid, there was never a time when we didn't have a big tub of margarine in our refrigerator. I remember it was called shed spread. Does anybody remember shed spread? You can comment below if you did. But we always had that in our refrigerator because my mother was trying to be healthy and everyone was telling her not to eat butter because butter was bad, really, really bad. I mean, butter was what gave everybody heart attacks and was so unhealthy. And so we all got on the margarine bandwagon. Everybody used margarine, right? It was really good. Wrong. It was terrible. It was actually the worst kind of fat. It didn't work real well for my parents either. They died at 51 and 52. My dad died of a massive heart attack, unfortunately. I'm not going to blame it all on the margarine. It wasn't all the margarine, but it had something to do with it. Now, last time we talked about the very best of the fats. We are in a series called The Skinny on Fats. This is the second in a series of 5. So here's the deal. Omega-3s, we don't get enough of them. We need more of them. This next fat that's in margarine is called a trans fat, and we need none of it. We need to get it out of our diet. A trans fat, or also called a hydrogenated oil, is actually an unsaturated fatty acid. In its natural form, the molecules are sitting on the same side, which is called a cis fatty acid, and that's okay. But when this artificial process happens, there is a tiny bit of trans fats found in nature, but they're not even the same. But in an artificial process, what happens is that these hydrogen molecules are pumped into very cheap vegetable oil. And they actually change the molecular structure of the oil so that it is solid at room temperature. It's no longer an oil. And there is a whole lot of problems, Houston, with that. The body doesn't even recognize that. The body doesn't even look at it as something that it is edible or something that is natural or something that we should even be ingesting. So what happens with this artificial oil that has the molecular structure has been changed by this chemical process, by this high heat process, is that we get all kinds of symptoms from this particular fat. So what it does is it increases your body fat and abdominal fat. It increases your heart disease risk, memory loss, LDL cholesterol, lowers HDL, which is the good cholesterol, increases depression, diabetes, stroke, and inflammation. The good old omega-3s, the good fats, they decrease inflammation. These increase inflammation. Okay, so as of 2015, the federal government says, okay, these are no longer on the GRAS list. So what is the GRAS list? The GRAS list is generally recognized as safe. Now here's the deal with the GRAS list, is that these are like substances in our food supply that the government, it's kind of like the jury is still out on them. We don't have enough evidence that they're really bad, and so the government says, well, we don't have enough evidence, so we're going to say they're generally recognized as safe. And that's what the trans fats were for so many years. And they will be, they're supposed to be out of our food supply on June 18th of 2018. Well, hurrah, yay. It only took the government 25 years to figure that out. Honestly, guys, the European countries, or many European countries, had already banned these substances 20, 30 years ago. And yet it took us this long to get rid of them. That's because of politics and lobbying and all those kind of things. But anyway, they are detrimental, and there's so much evidence. There was evidence back in the 1990s when I was in college. I remember there was this brilliant lipid researcher by the name of Dr. Mary Enig. And Dr. Enig was actually in the same building that I was in. I was taking classes upstairs and she was in one of her labs downstairs. And she was doing all this lipid research. So we knew, our professors were telling us how bad these trans fats or hydrogenated fats were. And so we knew this way, way long time ago. And there were tons and tons of evidence and mounting research and articles written about it. And so the American public was starting to get tipped off. But they didn't take them out of our food supply. Well, why were they even put in the food supply? First of all, they are cheap. It is the cheapest way to put a fat into a food. It's very, very inexpensive. The other thing, it just increases the shelf life and the taste of that food. So why am I even talking about this? Why am I even talking about this subject? Because, guys, I was in a grocery store this morning and saw at least 5 items that had hydrogenated oil, or partially, if it says hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated oil, that's a trans fat. It's still there. It's still something that we have to avoid, and it's still something we have to be really diligent about. It's worse, a ton worse than a saturated fat. So it would have been so much better if my parents had just eaten the darn butter instead of doing the healthy thing that all the experts were telling them to do. So what else is it in? Well, I saw it this morning in something called Cool Whip. Anybody know Cool Whip? Yeah, we eat Cool Whip. I don't understand Cool Whip. Why don't people just eat whipped cream? You know, if you want whipped cream, eat real whipped cream. It's so much better for you. Canned frosting. You know the canned frosting that we all love to put on our little cupcakes? Yep. Crackers, cookies, chips, frozen entrees. It's in everything. So we need to be diligent, and our children don't need this. Our bodies don't need it. It is a toxic substance. It's poison. Just look at it as poison. So my question is, why am I ranting? Why am I ranting about this? The moral of the story is that you cannot trust the federal government to make your food choices for you. Trans fats were not safe when they were telling us they were safe. Just because the government says something's okay doesn't mean that it's okay to consume. So we need to use our logic. We need to look at good research. We need to be critical thinkers about the foods that we are putting in our bodies. So I just want you to be just be aware that a trans fat needs to not be in your pantry, in your food supply. And another thing too is that you can't just look on the label where it says trans fats. You have to look on the ingredient list, because there's a loophole there. They can actually have trans fats and not list them. So look to see if there's any hydrogenated, partially hydrogenated, any kind of poison like that. Really, get it out of your life. Get it out of your food right now. You got a couple years, but still, it's important that we're diligent because it's there. So thank you so much for honoring me with your time. And please watch, if you haven't seen the omega-3 video, watch the omega-3 video. Please like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, and thank you for subscribing to this YouTube channel. And remember that everybody deserves to be optimally healthy. Thank you.